100% authentic podcast, the Air Raid Attack, all the way from Oklahoma City on my end. And first things first, we got a wonderful show, but do not forget to subscribe and download on all major podcast platforms. Follow us on Twitter at Air Raid underscore podcast. But first things first, we have the honor of having the co-host of Take 'Em Home podcast and a diehard Dallas Cowboy fan, Miss Sarah. Sarah, welcome to the Air Raid, and we're honored to have you on board tonight.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. Looking forward to going over things, talk a lot of football and lots going on. So should be exciting and good show. Can't wait.
Definitely looking forward to it. And for all you listeners out there, and even on the live stream, give her podcast a listen, and you will not be disappointed. And of course, joining us as well is the other half of the Air Raid Attack, Miss Jamie. Jamie, how are you?
Doing okay tonight. Doing okay. I was saying posted this on Twitter, but I was like, I don't remember the last time all four of my teams won in a single weekend. Like that hasn't happened in so long. I can't even tell you when the last time it was.
Well, I'm glad somebody else exists this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But first things first, Sarah, your Dallas Cowboys, of course, now they're looking, in my opinion, looking really good. We'll start things off with Dallas. Cooper Rush, the quarterback of the Cowboys, of course, taking care of the Commanders. No surprise in Dallas this past Sunday. Do we actually now have a quarterback controversy on our hands in Dallas?
I mean, according to Jerry Jones, maybe, but I think, yeah, I mean, at this point, you can't argue it. I mean, it's that old, the classic saying, "What's not broke, don't fix it." So at this point, I see no reason if Cooper Rush keeps winning games, even if Dak's back 100% healthy. How do you intervene and switch that up? I think again, a loss, might change things depending upon Dak's health, but for the time being, I think they're going to let Dak 100% heal and keep riding with Cooper Rush because they have a good thing going right now.
I'll be honest, I'm not a huge Dallas, and not so much really. It's not so much. It's just Jerry Jones, if you're honest. If Jerry Jones wasn't the owner, I probably wouldn't have too much issues. But I actually like Cooper Rush. Of course, don't know much about him, but the fact that he's winning, I applaud him for it because I'll be one of those guys that probably would sat there and said that Dallas is probably out of the playoff race, or at least probably could have taken the hit here in the last few weeks with Dak's absence due to his injury. But I know Jerry Jones says that he wants a quarterback. He wants a quarterback controversy. I think he's going to have one unless knock on wood, something drastic happens to Rush, and hopefully not. I do like the kids, so yeah. I like Dallas and I like what's going on, and hopefully, let me turn my work phone off, and hopefully he I know. Sorry, Jamie. I kind of want him to keep winning.
I know.
I will say this. I don't. I mean, my problems with Dallas obviously is that they're a rival with the Packers, but I despise Jerry Jones. I think that man is horrible. And I think that a lot of the reason why Dallas hasn't been successful is because you can't be everything in an NFL team. It creates a conflict of interest, and there's no check and balance with it, which has caused a lot of problems within the organization. I will say though, Dallas seems to me it seems like they have to be a little bit more creative with their offense, meaning they're forced to do things differently because Cooper Rush has different skill sets than Dak does. So maybe they're not relying on Dak as much as they were, and they're being more diversified because he isn't in there, and it's just kind of opened up a whole new aspect of their offense. They seem to be playing more like a cohesive unit whereas before it seemed like it was all individuals. So that's just my outside perspective on it. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I haven't watched them terribly a lot, but that's just what I've seen thus far. And I think, I think Dak deserves to be the guy, but could get real interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I totally agree and think that having to play Cooper Rush has definitely changed their offensive calling and scheme, as it always does when a backup comes in. But I actually think it might have been going the opposite way, where I think that Kellen Moore was trying to do a little too much before and overcomplicating things. And I think having to take a step back and oversimplify things for a backup quarterback has actually allowed them to strengthen their offense and kind of just, they have two pretty solid backs with the Pollard and Zeke duo. So they're getting back to establishing the run, but then they're getting a healthy Michael Gallup now too. So that opens things up for CD. And I think just kind of stripping things back a little bit and actually making things less complicated, less trying to, be too cute with it, do it, kind of all the, I guess, more cutting edge, whatever kind of play calling you want to call Kellen Moore thinks he does. But I think stripping it back a little bit has helped. And I hope they continue with that with Dak, because it's work, like you said, it's working for them. They look cohesive. The offense looked forced, early game one in Dak's play, and it was painful to watch, like really painful. So I think being able to strip it back and maybe simplify things might actually be the key for them, and I hope they just keep it that way.
I'm with you on that one. Of course, we're looking forward, moving forward. They got the Rams this upcoming week, and then week 5, of course. Then they got to go on the road to LA. Then of course go on the road to Philly, which is always a tough place. And of course, that rivalry itself speaks volumes. He'll be, Cooper obviously up against the task against the Rams. And of course you got Philly, who's making a name for themselves, especially Jalen Hurts. An early case, in my opinion, MVP race, but we'll see how that transpires. Finish out the year, of course. Then Detroit and then Chicago right before Week 9 bye. I honestly can't remember when Dak is due back. Let's just say, and Sarah, I kind of want to pick your head on this one. Mm-hmm. I'll give them. Ew, this will be tough. I'm just going to say 3-1. I think they'll probably lose to the Rams and then probably beat Philly, because Philly, for some reason, always loses a game at home that they're playing so well. But anyway, I say 3-1. But let's just say worst case scenario, they split 2-2. Heading into that bye week, do we see Dak? I mean, like I said, I don't know exact time frame on Dak.
Yeah.
But could we see Dak come in week 10 against Green Bay up in Lambeau Field?
Yeah, I think it definitely, from what I can keep up with, Dak's timeline is they're not really disclosing, because I think at this point it is heavily contingent upon like the fact that if Cooper Rush keeps winning, even if he's say 90-ish% or so, I think they'll continue to hold him out until he's 100%, healthy. But if things take a turn for the South, say they end up losing, next 2 games, right? Rams and Eagles, I think he'll be jumping back in right after that. But yeah, I mean, I think he'll definitely plan would be for him to be back against Green Bay. But again, by some miracle, if they go 4-0 between now and then, it's kind of like you keep going with it. But I think Dak, I'm not sure exactly on the numbers, but he has a very, very strong record against other NFC East opponents. So I think it's possible, if he's, depending upon how his progress is going, I think we might see a little bit of him in that Eagles game, especially if Cooper Rush starts to struggle a bit and, especially contingent. I think they'll beat the Rams handedly, but if they do lose that game, I think Dak could be back as early as that game against the Eagles.
I could see that, and I like Cooper, of course. I don't know much about him. I'm kind of looking through his stats real quick just to, Central Michigan kid. I was kind of curious where he even played at, but obviously a lot of people may not look, but 4 touchdowns and no interceptions, over 737 yards passing. Of course, the stats courtesy of the Dallas Cowboys website, but not too bad performance on Washington, 15-27, 223, and then 2 touchdown passes. If anything, it's a cool story for Cooper, and who knows, maybe at the trade deadline, that one team might need that one backup, or maybe that potential starter, Carolina, and they may try to, I'm not saying Cooper's going to be the savior of anybody's ball club, but if worst case scenario, I mean, he's done that. He's overdone my expectations. I'm not going to lie. I really thought Dallas's season could have quickly turned for the worse, but hey, he's getting them the wins, and that's what matters in the NFL.
Yeah, I think best case scenario, honestly, is there's a smooth transition from him to Dak. Like Dak's just healthy, Cooper Rush's play doesn't have to falter, and Dak's able to transition in, and then Cooper Rush gets a big deal somewhere else. I think that'd be best case scenario for him. Because they say, like, some people, talking, oh, he's definitely earned himself some money now, but it's kind of like quit while you're ahead sort of thing. Not that he's going to quit, but if he does start to, look bad against a few teams, like your stock goes down just as fast as it goes up. So
Absolutely.
I think he's probably hoping, honestly, that Dak comes back healthy at an easy transition point for him where he's earned himself a contract somewhere else in the future without kind of, hurting his stock.
Jamie, your final thoughts on Dallas and Cooper Rush?
I think he's it's as good as anybody could have expected him coming in off the bench. And then the other flip side of this is, I worry about him going into hostile environments. I don't know what to really think about. I mean, LA is one thing, but going into Philly, that place is hard to play, and Philly is playing some really impressive football right now on both sides of the ball. That could be a really difficult game for Cooper. And Philly do some interesting things schematically on their defense too at times where, a young quarterback not used to reading defenses could get into trouble. Same with the Rams. Defensive schemes, those could definitely give him some trouble. But we'll see what happens. And I hope that, if Dak's the true franchise quarterback, then I don't think you rush him back. I think you ride with Cooper as long as you can and get Dak fully healthy.
Yeah, I would say if Cooper can continue to win or even keep this team in competitiveness, I think the longer they can keep Dak and hopefully make the playoff push, I think the longer you'll probably see Dak out. But switching from a hero to a zero in regards to Baker Mayfield in Carolina, of course, I got to be a little nice to him, but at this point, it's tough to see what he's done. Jamie, I'll go start off with you on this one. Baker Mayfield, 22 of 36, a really bad 197, a total touchdown and 2 interceptions. And of course, he had 2 carries, but he had no yards to that carries. The Matt Rule experience, I think, has absolutely been a disaster for Carolina. I think he's like 11 of 20. He's like 11 and 26, 11 and 27 now. At this point, Baker, I don't know what's going on with Baker. He doesn't really have much around him besides DJ Moore and, I like, Christian McCaffrey, but he's been hit and miss this year as well, rushing it. What's the issue in Charlotte? Is Matt Rule done, and has Baker seen his best days ahead or behind him, I should say, because, sounds like to me DJ Moore went out.
Well, Carolina's a mess right now. I mean, the defense is great at times, but the offense is atrocious. Matt Rule's offense is it's not good for anybody really, but it's especially not good for somebody like Baker. They don't have the weapons anymore. It's time for the Matt Rule experiment to end. I just don't think Matt Rule is a good NFL coach. He should probably come back to the college ranks. No, I don't want him at Nebraska. No, I don't want him at Nebraska.
He can build programs, though.
That again, no.
He can build programs.
He can build a program, but I don't think. I'm not going to turn this into a Nebraska thing. I just don't think that Matt Rule is the right fit for Nebraska. And I'll leave it. I think there are other options out there that are a better fit for Nebraska. Anyway, he's not an NFL guy. He just doesn't have that. I don't know what it is to see intangible NFL coach, but you look at guys like obviously Belichick was meant to be an NFL coach. Like McVay and even the DC Todd Bowles going in for Bruce Arians. Those guys were just kind of built to be NFL guys, and I don't know. Rule just doesn't speak that to me. So it's over, and I feel kind of sad for Baker because I really do think he got shafted in the whole Brown situation. But at the same time, you got to try to make it work where you're at and do what you can do. And it hasn't worked, and I don't think that that's on Baker. I don't think you blame Baker for that at all. I think it's just a result of the OC and Matt Rule at Carolina.
Sarah, what's your thoughts on this unfortunate situation in Carolina? I really thought that they could have. Obviously, we're 4 games in. There's still 13 to go, but this is not showing any promise in Carolina.
Yeah, I think the issue, like Jamie said, is they're getting to the point where I don't think the team's behind the coaching staff anymore, and more specifically Matt Rule. And once, you lose your team's trust, I think the defense, like you said, is solid, has potential, but with the offense being really, like, for lack of a better word, incapable of producing, it's kind of hard for them to stand behind it and, be out there so much time on the field and keep pushing, use all basically faith and kind of confidence and everything. And once that's lost in the coaching staff, I think it's hard, it's a difficult league to play in. You have to be all in and have things running from all ends in order to be successful. So yeah, I also stand on the side. I do feel bad for Baker Mayfield. I think, without getting too psychologically into it, I feel like what happened with him in Cleveland had to, he seems like someone who'd have a lot of confidence, right? But I think it's all a facade. Like, I think he's actually one of those people who comes across as overly confident and is probably actually insecure. I know I'm getting like very deep aside from his football skills.
I like that. That's cool.
But I do think like that he has been rattled by this whole thing and just isn't the same player that he once was. And that's not to say he couldn't get back there maybe eventually, but I think it's kind of similar to along like the lines of, honestly, Carson Wentz, I think, is in the same boat with that, but he just does a little bit. He's not as good at hiding it, I think, as Baker is. But yeah, I think Baker's rattled and just psychologically been impacted by this, where he's just not the player he was. And he previously, like, he thrived off of his confidence, trash talk, things like that, that only further potentiated his skills, honestly, in football and the type of player he was. So to have that kind of stripped away, I think we're just not really seeing the same type of player. And also, like you said, clearly not the best offensive fit for him to begin with.
And I was kind of, I'm at this point, I'm just kind of not really dumbfounded because he's seen a few college coaches have success. What is it about college coaches that we just have not seen that success in the NFL? Is it the environment? Is it the play calling? Because, I mean, obviously Matt Rule, Steve Spurrier is another one. Nick Saban didn't have much luck either. Chip Kelly, another one. Excuse me, of course, UCLA, he formerly coached Philadelphia. But what is it about these college coaches that try to make that jump that we just haven't seen that much success really throughout history, so to speak?
For me, it's a different dynamic.
I was going to say, go ahead, Jamie, because I don't have an answer for this one.
I think it's
baffling.
I think it's a different dynamic. When you're a college head coach, these kids are in college, they're younger, they're looking up to you. They're not typically making money. They're relying on the coaches to put them in the best position to succeed. They have other things going on in their lives versus just playing football. And then you get into the league, and the league is a business, and everything is a business decision in the league. There are no feelings. There's no coddling. There's no working through stuff. I mean, for the most part, it's either you play on the field and you play well, or you're out. And in college, that's completely different. I look back to, the coaches that have been the most successful have always put the athlete ahead of the game. People like Nick Saban, people like Tom Osborne, they've always put their athletes as human beings first and as athletes second. And you just don't, I'm not saying that NFL coaches don't care about their guys. It's just a completely different standard in the NFL. NFL is professional. College is amateur. It's getting, unfortunately, more professional, which I don't like. Because I don't think that these kids are ready for that piece of the puzzle when they come in. I think you're starting to see some negative effects of the NIL era kind of creep up. But that's how I look at it. That's what I think the problem is, you know, people like Saban want to like help grow the person and help them be successful in society. Whereas in an NFL, you know, work environment, they're like, no, you either have your shit together or you don't. And if you don't, you're out. Period. End of sentence. That's my view. I don't know if that's right or wrong. That's what I can. That's what I've tried to answer this question a few times, and that's what I've come up with thus far.
No, I mean, I don't even know if there's a right or a wrong answer, really, because you just, and I was kind of curious because you just have so many really good college coaches. You know, Matt Rule wasn't a bad college coach. I really was disappointed he left Baylor for Carolina, but I get it. You know, it's all about the money. Of course, it's the NFL. How can you not turn that down? But you just see really good college coaches try to make a jump to the NFL, and you just haven't seen that much success. So I was just kind of curious as to what exactly it is that the NFL is obviously taking care of business. But of course, like Baker Mayfield said in his press conference after the loss this past week against Arizona, is he doesn't really care about the Panthers fans booing him. So that's Baker. I just hope that he can get back to winning. Maybe not so much, you know, grabbing his crotch or anything, but
Oh boy,
it's Baker. So Baker. Speaking of booing, the Boo Birds have been very felt in week 2 against Houston, and of course, the fan base, including myself, has exploited Denver at this point. Miss Sarah, want to get from obviously, I want to listen to definitely a non-biased standpoint from this one. 32-23 loss in Las Vegas, a loss to Las Vegas, let me put it that way. For Denver, of course, Javonte Williams out for the remainder of the season. Melvin Gordon can't keep hold of the football, and the offensive line is right back to where they've been the last 6 years. And if Clyde, if you're watching this or listening to it later, this has been the issue the entire time. The quarterback play is practically right back to Drew Lock again. What has gone wrong in Denver, and is this trade? I mean, it's a bad thing to say, but I'm going to say it out there. Is this trade going to eventually backfire for the Broncos in the long haul?
I think, unfortunately, there potentially is that. I feel like I'm a pretty non-biased opinion. Like, I have nothing against the Denver Broncos either way, and same goes for Russell Wilson. But I feel like all of a sudden it's come to light to me that I feel like he's been living, and this happens a lot, but he's been living behind this reputation that is not an accurate depiction of where he's at. You know, he's kind of been, his reputation has definitely preceded him, and it's from a few years of really great football, but now he's just always going to be Russell Wilson, and like, he's really not what that reputation is. And it's becoming clear, whether it's getting back to just different weapons around him, different coaching staff, whatever it is, but I just feel like it's, you know, there's just that saying, like, you can assess the vibes and kind of know what's going on right away, and like, it's not meshing for him in Denver, I think. Is that all I can really come up with? Yeah, like you said, they've had some injuries. Melvin Gordon not being able to hold on to the ball is a huge issue and very frustrating, especially when your quarterback play is lacking. But yeah, I mean, the Denver stole Randy Gregory, who is one of my favorite Cowboys players, which is a controversial opinion, I think.
No,
and I think he got hurt.
Go Huskers.
Yes, he was a lightning rod on a field, good and bad at times. And I think he got injured actually in Sunday's game. I didn't see how long he's out, if at all. Or
some say that he's going to be pushed towards the latter. He's going to be missing some time. Someone commented on Twitter on the live stream that potentially out for the year. So,
that sucks.
That
sucks.
So we'll
yeah, at least it wasn't a suspension. That's what everyone thought it was going to be, and that was the reason he landed himself there, not staying in Dallas. Was that little built-in clause, but. Yeah, I think it's just a matter of things don't seem to be clicking, and that's not to say it can't be turned around, but I don't know. I feel like if I was a Broncos fan, I'd be frustrated. I think that's really the best word that you can probably use to describe, and you can correct me since you are a member of that fan base, but I feel like it has to be frustrating to watch.
Well, it is, and I think Wednesday. I think Sunday. I know Clyde would probably, if he was on, well, if Clyde was on here, we probably wouldn't be talking. We'd be talking about up and down things. We probably would never finish our football conversation. But but um, but
That's
no, I think really, I think I think you're right. It is frustrating because we come into the season now high hopes. A lot of people really think that this team can dethrone Kansas City. This team can make a run for the playoffs, Super Bowl, which I thought a little too crazy. But when you have a Russell Wilson behind center, I mean, anything's possible. But Seattle's game was a little frustrating, but I get it was more emotional, so I kind of let that one slide, even though that was on Nathaniel Hackett time management wise, and barely beat really a bad Houston team. And now you go to you squeezed by San Francisco, and now you get to Las Vegas, who you got Josh McDaniels, but they've owned Denver now 7 of the last 8, 5 in a row. So no, it's frustrating because I mean we're back to where we have been the last 6 years. I still think the offensive line still, especially on that right side, is really bad. But Coach Hackett hasn't made a name for himself yet. Hopefully, his play calling and his time management skills gets a little bit better throughout the season. We'll see.
well, here's the thing.
I don't know. It's bad.
I don't think people realize that this is Hackett's first head coaching job ever. And some people, it takes a while for them to get into a rhythm as a head coach. They're not used to being responsible for managing the clock. They're not used to, managing all these different pieces, managing your D coordinator, managing your offensive coordinator, managing your quarterback coach and your special teams and, down on down. So I'm wondering if this is growing pains for him. I hopefully he's unfortunately learned some lessons the hard way and things will start to gel better moving as you move forward through the season. But I agree with Sarah, it is a different system for Russell, and Hackett can be pretty innovative, and sometimes you need to dial it back a little bit in order to make sure that there's cohesion on the field. So maybe simplify things like Dallas did with Cooper Rush, and then start building from there, get people comfortable and move forward. But I think a lot of it's growing pains for both, Russell Wilson and Hackett. I don't like that people are all up in arms about it right now, because I think that the expectations were too high going into the season, and you got to give the guy some time to get his systems implemented and get comfortable himself.
No, I'm with you on that, and I think even though I did hashtag fire Hackett, the only concerning part I do have, and unfortunately I got to keep on this, is man, I have a bad feeling this could be a Josh McDaniels all over again. McDaniels lasted, what was it, season and a half? I don't think he made it through his whole second season. He may have, I don't know, but I think George Patton's going to at least let this one's year slide. But let's just say that Denver doesn't make the playoffs, and right now they're not in position to. But let's just say they don't. I don't know if Denver has another struggle year in 23. I hate saying this. I don't know if it's not time to pull. I mean, I don't know what his contract looks like, and of course his buyout and all that stuff. But you may have to see another head coaching change yet again in Denver if things don't pick up, because the fan base. I mean, obviously, I'm not there in person. I watch them on TV and when I can, and read off of Twitter. But I've never seen a fan base, and OU, here in Norman's pretty passionate about their Sooners. But man, this fan base in Denver, I've never seen Twitter explode like it has really all 4 weeks. Man, it is insane.
I mean, I'm a Husker fan though, so nothing really phases me.
I mean, this is insane, but I mean, I hope it's gonna another tough short week. Hopefully Russ can get the start on quarterback on Thursday night. I mean, Hopefully Melvin can hang on to the ball. Maybe the offensive line can block for him, and we'll see. That defense, I feel bad for it. They're constantly on that field, and I just don't see how you can how you expect to win games and have your defense out there. But going back to the kind of keeping in the AFC West, but not so much the West, but Tampa Bay and Tom Brady. Sarah, Tom, I like Tom, but I think even though I would say his better days are behind him, I still think he can play. But are we slowly but surely starting to see the tread of Tom maybe potentially giving out, even though he really didn't have a bad game against Kansas City, 39 of 52 for 385 and 3 touchdowns. But how much more are we going to see of Tom? Because I know a lot of people don't like Tom Brady, but you got to obviously respect the guy.
Yeah, I think I fall into that class where I like him a little bit more each year.
Mhm.
I despised him for a while. Then you get the respect level, and now I'm kind of just like, okay, whatever. But, I definitely think so. He has this like, bell curve that I think about in school, I think, and he's definitely past the peak of the bell curve. And I think we're now seeing like the rapid like decline end of it, sort per se. And I'm not saying rapid like week by week basis, but I think if for however, I mean, I know it's unclear on his future in the NFL in terms
Right.
of playing, but after this year. But I think last year was kind of, I don't think he was playing his best football last year. It was pretty close, but I think it was clear, it was good football, but it was definitely on the other side of that bell curve, just higher up. I think now he's kind of heading more downward at a more accelerated pace and steeper slope. And I think it's the time. It's always weird when something like this happens, right? Like you have this image of this person who's so good, and
Yep.
like everyone kept talking about it and waiting for it to happen, and it just seemed like it never was going
Mhm.
to happen. And we all kind of accepted that. We're like, this guy's going to go out on top, and like, there's nothing anyone can do about it. But it's here. He pushed it a little bit, I think, and that's
Yeah.
his decision if he wanted to play to this point or not. You know what I mean? But I think we're clearly seeing that, his playing abilities have declined, and it's evident now, not just microscopic. And I think, the Bucks, I don't know. I mean, they're good. Their defense is good, but
Mhm.
they're not great. And I think again, it's a reputation of, Tom Brady and all of the other supporting, players on the team as well, that I think people assume they're going to be really good, but they're struggling to pull off these games. Their offense, they're putting up pretty low numbers each game. The defense, luckily, is keeping the opponents, low scoring as well. But I'd be very surprised if they, make it past like the first round of the playoffs if they get in, which I think they will. Although the Falcons, I don't know, they could be
Mhm.
coming for them in the division. But yeah, I definitely think, as weird as it is for all of us to see, especially like from a generational thing, Tom Brady's been as good as long as I've been watching
Yep.
football. So to see this is weird, but I think it's here.
I think he
Well,
did. I think he needed to retire after that Super Bowl with Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
That's I've always thought that. I know that the Bucks they've had a lot of injuries, and I know that hasn't helped anything. But Arians isn't there this year, and I don't know how much that's affected anybody or not, but because I like Todd Bowles, I think he does a great job. He's obviously an incredible DC. And left was just still there with their offense, but they've had a lot of injuries, and I don't think that's done anybody any favors when you have all those injuries at wide receivers and on the offensive line like they have. That's tough. It's tough for any team to overcome. I think that's been a lot of their issues. So we'll see once they start getting a little bit healthier as the season goes on. I know Wirfs is not healthy at the moment either.
Mhm.
So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm with you though. I'm kind of starting to think Brady's on the downswing, and he should have just stayed retired and maybe focused on his home life a little bit more.
I do. What's up with his face? I'm not trying to make fun of him. What I mean, I'm trying. Did he actually have? Have you seen this, Jamie? Have you ever seen his updated face? Like his face, his cheekbones or whatever.
Oh, they're very sunken in. I noticed
Yeah.
that. I did notice that actually when I was watching the game.
Is that a health issue, or is that him not eating something?
It's
I mean,
probably stress.
I think it's some sort of though plastic surgery as well. or like Botox,
Gotcha.
even at a minimum. Like I feel like maybe a little Botox that went like too high up in the face here, and then everything else
Right.
down. Like the cheekbones are really up and tight.
It's
I think it's evident his facial structure, is
Mhm.
bizarre
I noticed.
looking.
I was like, why does his face look so weird? But then I thought I was just being critical, like a critical person. I was like, never mind. I won't post anything about it. But I almost said something on Twitter, like,
yeah,
what is up with this man's face? Like,
yeah.
it's either stress or there's like his cheekbones are definitely the structure of his cheekbones is different. I don't know if he got into like Giselle's like makeup or I don't know what happened. Not sure.
Probably a combination of everything.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be a lot of mixture of everything in between. Of course, I know, from what a lot of people like to say is, he has some marital issues. So I'll let him handle that one. That's between him and his wife. But no, I think I'm with you on definitely. I think this is downhill slope. I'm still got to give him credit. 45. I don't know what 45-year-old man would want to literally, get hit by big guys, younger guys, and of course on the day and week in and week out process. So props to him at 45, and maybe we'll see him at 46. I don't think so, but I mean for 45, he's still plugging away. I mean, I think his worst game yard wide was it the Saints. So he looks good for 45. Just I think he's definitely seen his better days though.
Mhm.
Of course, better days is the NFC whopping South. The Falcons, though, however, showing life. I think the Saints, but another in the NFC. I guess I should say the first AFC East. Miami, of course, Tua in that scary situation. Of course, this past week against or last what was it Thursday against Cincinnati. Obviously, NFL terminated that third party connection with that, but the concussion protocol. Besides that, who was at? I mean, who was really at fault for Tua to be out there? And of course, on a short week where he just got what was a concussion again the following week prior to. Who's at fault for that? Was that the third party? Was that or did Tua? Obviously, I don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but did Tua tell Coach McDaniel, "Hey, hey, I'm gonna go out there and play regardless of how I feel," or was this a legit slip up from the team and that third party, and even at the NFL?
Yeah. I think it's hard, it's hard to say. Obviously, we're not there behind the closed
Right.
doors, but I think to speak and give benefit of doubt of these guys, I guess like this is they make a lot of money. So when you say it's livelihood, it sounds a little bit dramatic because they are
Mhm.
more than at least Tua is more than set. If he were to be done playing
Absolutely.
today, but still, it's their livelihood, it's their life. They're obviously clearly passionate about it. So if they, in my opinion, if they get any sort of indication that they're okay to go from whoever that's coming from, then I think they feel obligated to take it and are passionate enough to want to do that. So I don't think Tua is at fault by any means for any of this because clearly, if someone told him, "Hey, you can't play," he wouldn't be allowed to play, right? But if he gets any indication like, "Oh, you shouldn't play, but you could," sort of thing, like that's not on him. Then you need, he didn't go to medical school. It's so he doesn't have like the full background and knowledge, to know. And I work in healthcare. I work as a PA on this, so to see that is like that's a really the fencing reflex is a very bad and scary sign and always a
Yes.
terrible sight.
Mhm.
And I think it's just to me like like I said, he didn't have the knowledge base to know like the sequela that can happen from something like this. So even if he made that decision, he wasn't technically informed appropriately. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm speculating on that, but I think it's totally up to the medical staff, whether that's this independent provider. I don't know how that works with the in-house providers, speaking on it as well. But if whoever gave him the green light to be allowed to play, that falls on them.
Yeah, this was a management thing, not a Tua thing. I mean, there's no way that Tua probably said, I'm fine, because he's a competitor. That's who Tua
Mhm.
is. But it's your responsibility as a medical professional to be like, no, we don't think you're fine. This, you have A, B, C, and D going on. And Well, maybe you don't have C&D going on day 2. Maybe you only have one thing going on. What I don't think was probably properly conveyed to Tua was the fact that if it was a concussion, I mean, they said it was an ankle and a back, which, I mean, I don't think any of us are that stupid to believe that, but there's no way that he knew going into this past weekend. I don't think he knew the long-term effects. If you get a second concussion that soon after having concussion-like symptoms, the bad things that can result from that, which, I mean, at the very worst is death. I mean, there could be brain death, and we don't know the lasting effects of a concussion sometimes for weeks after the fact. I mean, it can take that long for those symptoms to unfold. And I had thought that the NFL had done a better job in hiring, independent contractors that were not with these football teams to suss out these type of situations for happening. But it just seems to have gotten very lax this season, and maybe even a little bit towards the end of last season. I've noticed a few where I'm like, that person probably should not be playing football right now. It's frustrating, and I feel most bad for Tua, because it really could have ruined his career, and maybe it still does. We don't know right now. I hope the NFLPA, does a thorough investigation, and I hope that the right people are fired, and we all, meaning the NFL, learns from this situation, because it was bad.
Well, it was scary bad. I mean, it also when he got sacked, and then of course were hit, and then of course had the formations of the arms. I mean, and the hands literally being froze for a while, and I mean that's a scary scene in itself. And I can only imagine what he was going through. And it's just hopefully the NFL. I think, and I'm glad they got rid of that third party, and hopefully they can get somewhere into more of a safer protocol. But I mean, I don't know what more safer at this point you can do besides playing flag football. But I mean, I know it's above my pay grade. I really don't have an answer for it. But if anybody may enlighten us, definitely know. Sarah, you mentioned about medical fears. Is there anything the NFL can do when it comes to at least the court? I mean, and granted, anybody can get a concussion. I don't want to just make it out to be the quarterbacks, but when it comes to this type of protocol concussions that leads to all kinds of other medical issues currently or down the road for the players, is there anything different the league can do, or is just going to have to be unfortunate? It sounds really bad, but you're just kind of screwed. Hate saying it's not, any intention.
Unfortunately, I think concussions are part of the game with football, right? Unless they can find some sort of bizarre helmet that supports the neck as well, like that might reduce some, but that would significantly change the way you play football. A lot of limited range of motion. So I think, unfortunately, like from an occurrence rate of them happening, initial concussion, it's not going. I don't see any way that can be reduced unless technology changes even further with helmets. But I think it's a matter of tightening things up. Like Jamie said, exactly. CTE and things like this, they progress from repeated head traumas. So it's more of a fact of limiting, the amount, and especially the fact that Tua came out a week later. Like that's such a sensitive time frame where you still have lasting effects from the initial concussion, and these things potentiate themselves. So I think it's more just a matter of, further utilizing protocols to screen, players, and whether that's having every player undergo a concussion screening test after each game, because there's probably lots of head traumas that occur underreported, each game and aren't necessarily flagged. So having them go through some sort of screening after every game, and then monitoring those who fail. They have all sorts of tests that they do to screen for concussions, but a lot of them are subjective, like meaning you're reporting your symptoms. I don't know if any of you, like when I was in high school, they started doing the concussion screening test at the beginning of each season where you go in and like follow. Yeah. So I think, they're probably doing that on a more complex level even. So having those, routinely administered to players and monitoring progress or changes in that could be something to tighten it up. And I imagine that's what they'll probably do from here. And then also, like you said, just making it as independent as possible, so there's no affiliation or bias from these healthcare providers where they feel pressured by either the organization specifically or the NFL as a whole.
Yep. I think that's the best thing that they can do moving forward is, and I mean, maybe even rotate them, have a group, but rotate the providers. These health systems around these professional teams they're huge. I mean, there's got to be plenty of neuroscientists and neurotrauma and trauma doctors out there that can rotate and make sure that it's not a situation where I feel like, and this is my opinion, I'm not saying this is what happened, but with everything that's gone on within the Dolphins Association organization recently, I have this horrible gut feeling that this came from higher up and was swept under the rug a little bit. And I mean, if that's the case, I hope that they fire a bunch of people and maybe even make them sell the team, because this can't happen. That can't happen. And you're not, and like you said, Sarah, you're not going to stop concussions and injuries and things like that. This is football. It's a violent game. We all understand that. But I think the fact that this was preventable is my biggest issue.
Well, and I think, and obviously we're not behind closed doors, so I don't know. I would hope that Tua, I think he's smart enough to tell Mike McDaniel in the front office and all the trainers and everybody involved, saying, "Hey, oh yeah, I'm good." I'm sure that probably didn't take place. I would hope not. And if that's the case, well, then so be it. But no, I think Miami definitely needs to do better, and the league as a whole needs to look over at the overall stat. And like Sarah said, unless you make a different type of a helmet that can help with all this, I mean, I've dealt with concussions, in high school and junior high and college. I mean, trust me, it's not fun. It's not fun by any means, but at least I wasn't out there the next week. But it's this protocol. I think I'm hoping that they can take in place and maybe can get something into it. But no, I agree, Jamie. I think something got pushed underneath the rug, and hopefully Tua. I kind of want Tua to be involved just because I would hate to know that they.
Oh, I think Mike froze. I don't think we froze.
Yeah.
He's back. There we go. Yep, you're good now.
Hopefully everybody heard that what I just got done saying. But recap if not. Now, could you hear me at least, or was I completely frozen?
No, you were completely frozen, buddy.
For like 10 seconds. Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't super long.
Alrighty. I might have college. Anyway, so no, I mean, I've had concussions and all that, but no, I mean, I hope that in the long haul, I want to hope that he had something to do with this. I have a feeling that he didn't. And hopefully he's okay. I haven't heard any update on him, but from a concussion to a quarterback that gets sacked. So kind of fill you in, Sarah. So I am not a Joe Burrow fan. I am not a Cincinnati, and Jamie knows where I'm going with this one. I'm not a Joe Burrow fan at all. A good buddy of mine, Dan, the host of the Time to BS podcast, thinks it's all about because LSU beat Oklahoma. That actually has nothing to do with that. I assure you that. I think he's a bust. I really am getting to the point that he's not as bad as Jamarcus Russell, but he's going to get there eventually. So Cincinnati, I like Zach. I like Coach Taylor, Norman High, and of course, I have nothing wrong with him. The issue heading into Cincinnati, what it was last year, and it was continued to be the same, is the sack. So I clearly said that in our little NFL preview that went just haywire. I mean, literally, everybody at that point just said anything and everything. I said Cincinnati was a fraud. That it was a one-hit wonder when it came to the Super Bowl. They don't get back, and later alone, they won't get back. They won't make the playoffs. Anyway, which leads me to this. So Joe Burrow, right now, as we speak, has been sacked 15 times. 7 of them in week 1. I think 6 in week 2 against Dallas. Luckily, his offensive line's kind of helped him out the last 2 weeks, even though he's still seen grass each of those 2 games. He's thrown 4 interceptions. Of course, that was week 1. He's done better since then. But I think it's 8-4 touchdown to interception. However, am I being too? So my question to you is Cincinnati the real deal, or I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I ain't gonna say that. What's your thoughts on Cincinnati? I'll put it that way. What's your thoughts on the
Yeah.
Bengals and Joe Burrow?
Yeah, so I think I have to say I disagree. I am a Joe Burrow fan. I do think
My
their
girl.
offense looks I think their offense looks a little forced this year. That's what I'll say. I think they're struggling a little bit. We saw it early, definitely clear in the offensive line. I have to not gonna lie, I felt good about Lyle Collins going there and talking like a big game bodyguard and everything, and then absolutely like getting pancaked against the Cowboys, spinning in all the wrong directions. It was fun to watch. But yeah, I think his offensive line failed him, especially early on. I think even he has obviously excellent receivers behind him, and it's still like they're not doing a great job getting the ball. Mixon isn't what he was towards the end of last year. Their run game isn't great, which again, reflection on the defensive line, not sure. But I think that they just are, to me, those seem to be that team that like has that it factor sort of thing. Like they just played well when it mattered at the end of the year last year, and I think they'll do the same thing again this year. But I think it'll be a rocky road to get there. I don't think they're gonna, which they've have some losses already, but I don't think, I think they'll sneak their way into the playoffs and probably. I don't think they'll be Super Bowl champions, but could make a Super Bowl run, for sure. So. But I would agree with you. I do think their offense does not look the same as it did towards the end of last year. It looks a little more pained and just not as fluid.
I agree. There's something not quite gelling within the offense, and I'm not sure what it really is. Whether it be that the run blocking isn't as good, and therefore Mixon isn't as good. I don't know if I know he's been banged up. I know he's always had like an ankle issue. So maybe that's kind of what's causing some of it. But when they don't run the ball very well, that their passing obviously doesn't go as well. But I agree. They looked a little bit out of sorts. It's getting better as the season goes on. And I think that they'll be fine. I don't really understand what the cause of that was, other than there were new pieces on the offensive line. So maybe that's caused a little bit of it to happen earlier on in the season. Yeah, Mixon isn't as strong, so I'm kind of hoping they maybe find a back, this next draft to fill that plug. But the receivers are still great. Burrow's still great. I know you don't like him. I do not think he's a Jamarcus Russell. I just don't. I don't see that as Burrow's path.
What about Johnny Manziel?
Because he's not an idiot. At least Joey B has his head on straight. Johnny Manziel is a friggin' train wreck. No, I think the Bengals will be fine. I think they get to the playoffs. I think that they're going to be fine this year.
Baker Mayfield.
Baker Mayfield. What about him?
Joe Burrow.
Is not Baker Mayfield. No. Disagree.
I think it's 2 against 1 here.
Yeah. I agree. I think the girls win and
I'm fine with that. Speaking of teams B, as we start slowing down into what I consider the second half of the show, Buffalo looks really beatable, but I still think that they're the best team in the AFC. Jamie, your thoughts on the win, even though Baltimore had so many opportunities to beat Buffalo on Sunday, but I think it's Kansas City, Buffalo, and everybody else is in the dust right now in the AFC. Your thoughts on Buffalo so far, even though the last 2 weeks, again, kind of been rough for the Bills?
I don't really judge the Bills these past couple weeks. They have so many defensive injuries.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to really judge what's gone on the last couple weeks because of that reason. I mean, I feel like half of their defense is injured right now. So as long as they get those pieces back healthy, as the season, as we get into the later part of the season, the Bills will be fine. They're They're a very, very, very good football team. The Chiefs are a very, very good football team. I would say that those teams are probably the elite in the NFL, and I'm not sure that there's really anybody, even on the NFC side, that's at that level, because the Packers aren't right now. So yeah, that's just my opinion. I like Buffalo. I just think I can't judge for what's happened, and because they've still, I mean, they still almost won, and then they did win against the Ravens. So that just shows you the heart of that team, and that they'll fight. And that to me is how you win games, especially going into the playoffs. Go ahead, Miss Sarah.
I think I feel pretty much the same. I'm from New York. I've adopted Buffalo as my New York team. Obviously, it would not be the Giants, and Jets are okay. So I think lately they've shown they can win it always, winning big, won a close one last weekend. So if I was part of Bill's Mafia, which I guess I can consider myself a secondary member of, I mean, I'm excited. I think they're exciting, and as long as they can stay healthy, I think they're a clear favorite for the Super Bowl.
I still stick to I have them going 15-2. I don't know who said that. Somebody did on the NFL thing. I definitely don't have them going 15-2. I do think they're a really good team. I think unfortunately injuries have kind of hit them on the defensive side, but I think they'll be perfectly fine. Speaking of the Super Bowl, we got a question. Come on. There we go. This goes for all three of us. Does Philly make the Super Bowl this year?
I don't want to answer that.
I don't know. It's possible, but I don't think it's going to happen this year.
I feel the same. I think they're a Super Bowl caliber team, but because they've kind of had this rather rapid, increase in success, at least that we can see thus far, I think they're gonna lose a disappointing one in the playoffs. I think just whether that's not really inexperience, I guess, in the big moment. I think they're a Super Bowl caliber team, but I don't think they're gonna win it this year.
They're just not quite there yet.
Yeah.
Just like I felt that way about the Bills last year. I just felt like they weren't quite right. They just weren't quite there yet. This year, they might get over that hump, though. We'll see. We'll see what happens between them and Kansas City, but they might.
See, this was a tough one because in the NFC, the South, I don't really see anybody making a run. Dallas, I kind of want them to keep with Cooper Rush. I think he's really got them going, but I'm sure they'll go back to Dak, and we all know how that sometimes may or may not go for them. The Giants are too up and down. Okay. The two up and down, Washington. The Rams, I don't know what week you may or may not catch them. Arizona, Cliff Kingsbury, and he, as a head coach, he's not a second half guy. So obviously that rules him out just from that stat alone. I don't know. I in Green Bay, I still think probably the favorites besides the Rams, but I don't know. I like Jalen. I still think of him more of a Bama quarterback than Oklahoma, but he's got the talent around him. The thing I think I might have mentioned it earlier is Philly loses to teams, aka even though they won, should have lost in Jacksonville, but they lose to teams they're not supposed to lose, and I think that's what is going to get them either. If they do, and I agree with Sarah, if they do get into the playoffs, they're going to be a one team, and that could be a one round exit. If they don't make the playoffs, it's because they lost to probably three teams they should have overall beat. Probably not, but I won't be surprised if they at least get to the NFC Championship game. But I do like his receivers a lot, and anything's possible. I don't know the schedule from here on out. There's still a lot of football to be played still, so anything can happen. Not to knock on you, Fly Eagles Fly crew, but Jalen Hurts could tear an ACL, and your whole season's out of the window. So
why did you even say that?
Well, I'm trying to help Sarah out. I mean,
appreciate
come
it.
on.
We don't cheer for injuries, but
No, I mean anything could happen. I mean, you could have Devontae Smith. I mean, you could have Miles Sanders. I mean, injury, aka Denver. Injuries can play a role in the season. There's still 13 games left. So, no, to answer your question, I don't see Philly making it, but I will say that I would not be surprised if they make it to the NFC Championship game. So that would not be a surprise. But final few questions. Number one is speaking of your Dallas Cowboys, Sarah, does Dallas win the NFC East? And could you see them making the playoffs? Could you see them in the Super Bowl this year?
this is a tough one because it can go many ways depending upon Dak's health and where Cooper Rush goes from here. I'm not gonna lie, I'm worried about the Eagles winning the division. For sure. Like you said though, I could see them. I mean, they're gonna play the Packers, which I think
Right.
those two, but they're playing that whole division. So they get to play the Bears, the Vikings, who are solid teams, but I could see the Eagles losing two or three of those that they shouldn't. In which case, yes, I do think the Cowboys will easily top the Giants and the Commanders, and it's going to come down to them and the Eagles. But I would love to see them in the Super Bowl. So maybe if I speak that into existence, it will happen. But it's hard to call a team. I guess when you're playing up with your backup quarterback, there's so much unknown that it's hard to say, yeah, we're going to the Super Bowl. So I think I need a little bit more time to be convinced, but I definitely can be convinced on that.
I mean, they have the talent.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, their defense is incredible.
Yeah, Dallas has the talent. It's just whether or not they can put it together or not.
Right, and adversity and everything with injuries and stuff like that and getting it all together. So
Agreed.
Jamie, do you see Dallas making the winning division, of course, then potentially seeing them in the Super Bowl?
Well, no, because they'd have to beat the Packers. So no. I'm gonna pass.
Touche.
I'm gonna pass.
I just think I could see them. I could see them in the division. Hard. Well, I think Dallas. There's no knock on Dallas. It's just honestly the truth. They got to learn how to win a playoff game, which they haven't had much success on. And then number two, can they carry that on to the second playoff game? And that's hasn't happened since '95. But do I think they win the division? Well, I got to stick to what I just said about Philly. They lose about 3 or 4 games that they shouldn't. So I'll say that they probably will win the division. Dallas, yes. And then Super Bowl, I don't no. Well, I mean, again, you gotta see who they play off, but currently, right now, no. Even though Cooper Rush for MVP, it'd be kind of cool. You got to root for the kid at this point.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
I like the kid. Alrighty, cool. Okay, we're on this Aaron Judge watch here. But
nobody cares about baseball.
According to the MLB. So I real quick, way off not football topic. Sarah, you are a golfer, is that correct?
Yes. Aspiring.
Right. Is there any I respect that. Are you decent, pretty good? The reason why I asked that because I got a buddy of mine, he's a big time golfer, and he's just kind of wanting to know what your game was like.
Yeah, so to be honest, full disclosure, I don't keep score when I play golf yet. I'm not there yet. I'm a very competitive person, and so I live in the Northeast, so my golf season is short living up in New York. So I only get really a couple months of solid golf. So this was my third summer really playing. First year I started late. So I probably should start keeping score soon because I feel like I'm at that point. But I pretty much only keep score on the holes that I get a par or my rare like birdie that I've had. So, and that's not often, depends on the day. But I was a former college distance runner for a long time, and I've kind of given up competitively running. So golf was a really good transition for me for like a competitive outlet, introspectively, not competing against anyone else. But it's tough. It is a mentally gruesome game. I'm spiking my clubs sometimes. I'm angry, and then the next day I love it, and I'm like, I can't wait to go back. Like I should call out of work to play golf today. So
Oh,
it's an
that's what's
emotional
up.
roller coaster, but I like it. I think it's a lifelong sport, so that's what I'm excited for to keep playing. So yeah, I can't say like what my handicap or anything like that is. I'll report back once I start keeping score, but for now, I'm just out there trying to piece it all together.
I
love
respect that. I respect that.
Yeah, it's a tough one, but
Yeah,
it's fun.
I don't golf. I tried one time, and for many reasons I'm like, this is not my thing. I'm not gonna partake. I'm good.
No, it's a stressful hobby. It's not for
Mhm.
I'm
fun
like, this
hobby.
is
That's
not
for sure.
relaxing. Like, there's nothing
Yeah.
relaxing about this situation right now. My brother
Mm-mm.
golfs. He loves it. And there's a lot of people in my family that golf. But I'm like, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm out. Y'all have fun though.
Yeah.
I'll drive the golf cart and drink if you want. I can do that. No, that's
That
good.
is
Okay.
fun.
I don't mind golfing if when time allows. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, it is a
But
time-consuming hobby too. That's for
yes, it
sure.
is. And I'm like Sarah. I don't keep score because yeah, it wouldn't be
Why
pretty.
do that to yourself? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the discouraging part. You realize, yeah, I'm not there yet. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
you're not going to get there yet. It's all right. Sarah, who is your been surprise team so far in the 2022 season, and who is your disappointing team so far?
Yeah, I'd say I'm so far surprised by Jacksonville. To be honest, they looked so bad last year, and I was quick to hop on the Trevor Lawrence is a bus train. Honestly, I didn't really
Mhm.
watch too many games because they weren't very exciting, so it's kind of easy to just hop on that without real any solid, I guess, background to go off of. But I've been surprised with how they've played so far this year. Pretty tough games so far and some surprising wins. So I'm excited to kind of see where they go. In terms of disappointment, not to don't kick me off the show for this, but I have to say Denver.
Oh
I think
man.
you said it yourself, a lot of hype going into the season with the
Yep.
talent, new quarterback. So I think so far they've been a disappointment, but very early, still some time to turn it around.
It is no, and I think that's why I think we always, including myself, I'm talking to myself as well. Is I think we still missed that. We still got 13 games. I mean, anything, anything can happen in the next 13 games. But Jamie, your surprise team, and then same question, surprise, and then disappointing.
I mean, I'm with Sarah on this one. Jacksonville has really impressed me. They are fun to watch. They've really played well as a team. I like watching their offense. I like watching their defense. They've got a great defense. Definitely have some big time playmakers on their defense. So yeah, I've been pleasantly surprised by Jacksonville. Disappointment, I would probably say maybe the Raiders. I guess I thought coming into the season that the Raiders would be better than they've been. And they just haven't. They've not been great at all. I didn't think that Devontae would have the seasons that he's had with Aaron Rodgers, obviously, because Derek Carr is not Aaron Rodgers. So I knew
Right.
there'd be a little bit of fall off, but I would have suspected that they would be better than they've been this season. Even defensively, I would have thought that they'd be a little better, but anything can happen. We're still early in the season, so who knows?
Oh no, I'm with you on that one. No, I think surprise would be Doug Peterson and the Jaguars. I gotta own up. I gotta text him later on the night. I gotta own up because so far, Clyde in the NFL preview had Jacksonville winning the South, and
We all
currently,
laughed at him.
yeah, we all
Wow.
laughed. I'm like, dude, I know you're from Colorado. He's a good buddy of mine. I was like, dude, I know you're from Colorado. You probably smoking some of that stuff that's back there, but dude, there is no way Jacksonville is winning the South, and right now they're tied for first. I mean, so. No, I go Jacksonville. So congrats. So far, Clyde, you're looking like a genius. Disappointing. I would have to say Denver. I just don't know who else would be that mix besides Denver. The hype was there, preseason, off season, preseason, and heading into the season. And I think I think right so far they're just being pushed around. Uh, offensively they're just not clicking really on all cylinders. Play calling to getting the play to the quarterback and so on and so forth. So I would unfortunately would have to say Denver would be my disappointing team. But there's what 13 games left, so the number 13 guys. There's 13 games left. Anything can happen, but their tough stretch of football games is going to be happening in the second half of the season for them. And if they lose to the Colts, I think we get Jacksonville after that. If we lose to the Colts, okay, so we got the Colts coming up next, and then we got the Chargers and then the Jets. I mean, that's going to suck. And then I think Jay is Jacksonville after that. If they struggle heading into the bye week, I'm going to be concerned for the second half of the season because the second half of the season is absolutely brutal for Denver. So hopefully they can get everything. Long story short, hopefully they can get everything figured out, and hopefully Nathaniel Hackett can get something going. But that's what I would say will be my two teams.
Agreed.
Let's see, one more. Alrighty, one more. If the okay, now it's probably even talking about that one. Sarah, Mike McCarthy, if he is fired indeed, which you never know, may or may not happen. We don't know yet. Who would be a head coach you would like to see in Dallas?
Sean Payton. I've been behind that train this whole time. I am not, I mean, Jamie, you can let me know what you think about Mike McCarthy. You probably have a different view from him than I do, maybe, but I can't stand McCarthy. I haven't been a fan of him since the very beginning in Dallas. I'm not saying Jason Garrett was the guy. He wasn't, but I'm not a McCarthy fan. His clock management is terrible. When he's involved in play calling, it's questionable. I don't know. I can't get behind him. I've heard he does some good things in the locker room to like corral the guys, whatever, but his sideline presence isn't doing it for me. I'm ready for him to be out. I was mad when Dak got injured initially, partially because I was like, this is going to extend Mike McCarthy's stay in Dallas because he's playing with the backup quarterback. Cooper Rush has been good, so maybe not, and they've been winning some games, so I don't see him getting fired midseason. But if they definitely don't win a playoff game or maybe even come away with an early exit, I think he's gone in Dallas.
I'm not a Mike McCarthy fan. I never was.
Good.
Even when he was at the Packers, I was like, he was never he's never been my favorite. So I'm with you. I don't think he's a very good NFL head coach. I think he, in a lot of ways, wasted Aaron Rodgers' prime years. Not that obviously Aaron Rodgers is still Aaron Rodgers, but I think that there were a lot of things that McCarthy did that prevented Green Bay.
Them, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So nope, not a McCarthy fan. I'm with you. I was really shocked that Dallas went that direction. Anyway, when they hired him, I was like, that's sure interesting, but okay. You do you, Jerry. You do you, man.
Mm-hmm.
No, I got an interesting one, and I do think Mike McCarthy. I think unless he wins a Super Bowl or something, maybe happens to where he can show why he can stay there for another year. I'm gonna go out on a limb, and I could see Lincoln Riley be in Dallas.
I'd be open to that. I'm open to anything at this point, though, so I'm going to agree with anyone who's not Mike McCarthy. That's pretty much the case here. So
anybody's not Mike
whatever
McCarthy.
right now.
Yeah. I think us in Green Bay felt that way too. Just give us somebody else. We don't really care who, but
something. Yeah.
And as we end the show on that breaking news for all you Major League Baseball listeners out there, Aaron Judge becomes the American League home run king. He has passed Roger Maris's 61 home runs. He has hit home run number 62. So the Yankees better pay him because the Yankees better pay him because I'm afraid he's gonna be leaving the Bronx if they especially if they win a World Series. So congrats to Aaron Judge. That's pretty cool. So That's all I got for you guys. On
Yeah.
baseball.
Congrats, Aaron. Thanks for not interrupting my football games anymore.
Yes,
Appreciate you.
that's a good way to end it.
That was so annoying.
Be done.
Stop interrupting my football. I don't care.
And Fox News has now just sent the notification out. So everybody at 61-year-old record. There you go. But first things first, Sarah, it was an honor having you on talking NFL football. And we'll definitely have to have you back on, let's say probably halfway close to the postseason and do this all again.
Yeah, I love it. It was a blast. I would be happy to come back on and see if we can either get both of you, one of you on our Take 'em Home podcast as well, do a little swap or mashup episode. That would be great, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I'll be
that
down
sounds
for
great.
that. Just let me know.
All right.
Sounds
Thanks
good.
a lot, Sarah. Have a good night.
Are you
Yeah, you
listening
too.
out
Thanks,
there?
guys.
You've been listening to the Air Raid Attack podcast, Sarah, the co-host. And last thing, where can all the listeners find you at on the podcast and the on Twitter?
Yeah, so our podcast is at the Take 'em Home podcast on Apple and Spotify. Same as our Twitter. That's our Twitter name. And then I personally am on Twitter as at the football girl, but GRL, specifying not girl. A little bit said differently. So that's where you can find us. Take a listen to our podcast. I think similar vibe, as you guys kind of just talking sports, really football primarily. I say talking sports, but it's predominated by football this time of year. So yeah.
And all you listeners out there, if you are going to follow, please be respectful. Just
Yes.
that's the main thing.
Yes.
Be respectful,
Thank you.
please.
Be respectful,
Yeah.
boys.
Yes, be nice, everyone.
So, but Sarah, the co-host of Take 'em Home podcast, joining us on the Air Raid Attack. I can't even now. I'm disappointed about the number 62 now. But Jamie, have a wonderful weekend, and Sarah,
You too, Mike.
you as well. And you've been listening to the Air Raid Attack podcast. Listen to us on all major podcast platforms. Follow us on Twitter at @AirRaid_podcast, and we will see you all next week. Have a great
Thanks.
rest of your week.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Come on. And